Hello, and good day, adventurers. Today in the shop, we have a bit of a story time. In fact, I'm going to be talking about why it is that I like Pathfinder more than D&D. Right off the bat, I just want to say how there could be just the advantage of the fact that I learned Pathfinder first and D&D later on, that it could be the reason why I prefer Pathfinder so much more over D&D, because I learned one, I mastered one, and I just don't like having to learn and master another one. That very well could be the case. I'm not going to say it isn't, because that would be ignorant. Now, what I do want to also mention is kind of one of my first two problems that I have with D&D was that your GM or your DM can really be the make or break for a new game. Whenever you are playing or trying out a new role play, your dungeon master or your game master is major component and can really be the line between just utterly hating a game and really liking it. And my very first GMs for D&D were kind of in the hate department. So first off, I had a GM that was he for a better term, he seemed to have lacked imagination. And so he mostly liked doing books. He liked doing the modules for games. He liked doing stuff that was already laid out. He just had to read it and tell everybody what to do. That's what he liked to do. And so that was his preferred method of GMing. And we decided to do a couple of D&D campaigns, a couple of different ones. I gave it my best shot. I tried several times with him. And it's not my only D&D experience with him. I had D&D experiences with other people as well. And I'll talk about those in a little bit as well. But so there was one game in particular where the big bad boss appeared before us and was starting a monologue. And the players, me being one of them, weren't interested in hearing this monologue. So I started to role play and cock off to the bastard because I wanted to show that I wasn't afraid and that I'm willing to take him on anytime, even though I'm sure at that point in time he would have just completely killed me. But that was me playing my character. And I ended up getting yelled at by the GM to shut up because I was interrupting the monologue, when the GM could have did, I feel, one of two things instead. He could have either patiently asked me, he could have asked me to be patient, because he wanted to read off the monologue because maybe he really likes the character or something like that, and I would have agreed. Or he could have just rolled with the punches, recognizing that his players didn't want to hear the monologue, and just rolled with it, improvised. But like I said, he wasn't very imaginative. And there was also another bit in another game where I asked if I could play something a little different, because I really wanted to play something from Pathfinder. Not saying that I played something from Pathfinder in D&D. I didn't do that. But Pathfinder has a class called a gunslinger, and I managed to find that D&D also has a version of a gunslinger from as a fighter archetype or something like that. And so I asked if I could play that. And my GM originally said yes, and I said, you are going to put loot out there for me, you're going to put ammo and stuff out there for me, because that's my whole shtick. And he says, yes, I'll do it, because we were playing a module, and I wanted to make sure that he wasn't going to just stick to the book and not roll with the punches and give me my loot, like better guns and stuff like that. And he said he would, but he didn't. I ended up having to ask him whether or not I could make custom weapons from bones of my enemies, because I was so low on ammunition that I wanted to save it for the real important fights, because if you're just powing through every fight that comes along, you're going to be completely out of ammo by the time you get to the big boss, which is going to need you to unload clip after clip after clip. And so I ended up having to make swords and axes out of bones of werewolves and stuff, just so that way I could keep fighting. And on one hand, I liked that he was able to roll with the punches that allowed me to make custom weapons. On the other hand, I'm mad that he couldn't roll with the punches and give me ammo for my guns. I don't know what was the difference or what was the problem. Clearly, maybe he didn't like my guns or something like that. He could have talked to me, but he didn't. And so I had a bad GM. Now, I did have some experiences with a better GM. I ended up playing a game a very long time ago. My very first D&D experience whatsoever. It was a version of D&D where the better AC was the lower number, not the higher number. And so I remember joining in on that game, and my character sheet felt like it wasn't being used. One, it felt like there was nothing on my character sheet that meant anything. There was no information there that was unique to my character, and it felt like the entire game was purely a forum role play, where it was just I say stuff, my GM says stuff, my GM says what my stuff that I said does or does not work. Instead of there being actual rules or guidelines in place, some actual control in the player. I felt like I had zero control over my character, and that's the case for all my D&D experiences, is I felt like I've had zero control over my character and what my character can do, and that I'm completely at the mercy of the GM, which is not fun for me. I like knowing that I can make a plan and be able to understand the rules of the game, so that way the plan can work out. I'm the type of person that likes going into a game, reading an abilities move out completely, trying to understand it completely, and then being able to utilize it in its most effective fashion. So I guess you could say I'm a metagamer, or a min-maxer, and I kind of am, but I'm also a very goofy person, and I like making really weird things. I once made in Pathfinder a fighter that had one eye, one hand, one leg, and he was meant to be the fighter of the group, and I made him extremely charismatic as hell, and I made him a pirate. He was a pirate, an old pirate captain stuck on land that was extremely charismatic. He could intimidate, he could diplomatize, he could bluff his way through so many things. Even though he was the fighter, he was supposed to be the one engaging in combat, and also the fact that he only had one hand. He moved at a slower speed because he only had one leg. He had a peg leg, and so I like to make goofy stuff. I do like to min-max, but I like to min-max goofy things. I like to make unique characters and play them exactly how I feel that they should be played, because I'm also a GM, and that's kind of how I run my games, is that I make a lot of custom things, and I play them exactly how they're supposed to be played. I think how they would think in that situation and how they would deal with that situation. I'm really good at getting in my character. Now, another thing is that I find, like I said, I find that there's less control over the character in D&D, in that I also feel that D&D compared to Pathfinder is very boring. In D&D, you get every 4 levels, you either get an ability bump or a feat, which I feel is a real sad thing, because you're completely relying on your class to give you all your unique custom abilities, and most of the time they're very mundane custom abilities, or they're things that are very lackluster. And then when it's finally time to choose a feat, which is an accent to your character, or an ability bump, which makes your character do their things better, because also in D&D you only have proficiency, which is like a measly 2, 3, I think you can get up to 4 or 5, I'm not sure, but it's a very small number that goes onto your skills and abilities, which are already small numbers because your ability scores are just small and stuff like that, resulting in single digit bonuses to your dice rolls, meaning that you can never guarantee that you're going to be good at anything, which I kind of don't like. I kind of don't like that you can't master a skill in D&D. You can only be really good at it, being like getting at best like a plus 10 to do something, which may sound like it's a lot, but it really isn't, especially since those DCs are completely at the whims to your GM, whether or not he feels they should succeed or not. There really isn't any rules in place to decide that kind of stuff, for you to plan or work around to make sure your character is strong. But while in Pathfinder, you get your ability score as a bump, and then you get skill points to spend on your characters, and you get to have as many skill points in your characters equal to your level, meaning that the skills that you're really strong at, you get your ability score bonus, which could be completely in your control because you rolled your stats, you chose for that stat to be really good. Then you choose to put as many skill points as possible in that, so you technically get your levels bonus on that skill as well. And then Pathfinder also gives you a miscellaneous bonus of 3 for class skills. So again, a class skill that was on your list that you're planning to try and use more, you get another +3 to that. And then you can end up applying feats, because in Pathfinder, unlike D&D, you get a feat at every odd level. You get one at level 1, 3, 5, 7, and so on. And that means you get a bunch of feats to help shape your character into what you want your character to be. And so you get to do all this really cool stuff. You get to make your character extremely good. You can make your character a master at lying. I made a character, I made him a special archetype of rogue, which got, I think it was like a spy or something like that, which gave him a special bonus onto his lying. He got like a bonus to his lying equal to either his level or half his level. And he got, what was it? I got a high ability score, so I got to add that to it. I put all my ranks into it. I got 2 or 3 feats that gave bonuses to bluffing, which made me end up with a 20-some bonus on telling a lie. Now, here's the different thing, is that in Pathfinder, characters are a little extra, as we've seen. If I can get a +20 to lie on to lie, obviously there's going to be characters that are going to get bonuses to their sense motive skills that are equally impressive, and so there's going to be important characters, and your GM's going to usually understand what kind of characters you're building, and if he wants to beat you, he will build a character to beat you. And so it's not set in stone that your character is always going to master it, but at least you can build a character with the idea that you can get really good at it. And I ended up gaining a unique ability on that character that made it so that way when people retold my lie, they got my bonus to their roll to retell the lie. So I could go into a town, and I remember I started Halloween. I created Halloween in the world so that way I could go stealing from people. I created Halloween so that way I could get people out of the house, wandering other houses, and so that way I could break into houses and steal from them. And I thought that was one of the coolest things I ever did. And it wasn't the only one either. I ended up creating Christmas in another town just so that way I could punish parents for enslaving their children. It was, in my opinion, one of the coolest things that I could do, that I could tell a lie, and then when people retold that lie, including my teammates, I could tell my teammates the lie, and if they bought it, if they failed their saves against it, willingly or unwillingly, they got my bonuses to retell that lie later on when people asked about it, or about me, about the situation. I even had plans in place so that way I could make people think that I was a dragon. So that way I had like a little falling out in case I got into a bad situation, that I could probably threaten people that I was a dragon to get them away from me, to not deal with me. And so that's just a cool thing you can do. And that's not the only thing you can do. In Pathfinder, you also get combat maneuver and combat maneuver bonus and combat maneuver defense, which is more detailed rules for bull rushing and grappling and tripping and disarming. Essentially, you can become really good at this stuff. I had a player once make a lucha libre character for a game. I know, hard word to say. And so he specialized in grappling people, pinning people down, and knocking people out with the grapple. And it was such a cool thing that normally in Pathfinder, I feel that it would be completely based up to raw stat rolls, and then you most likely won't succeed because you can easily end up rolling 10 or lower on that dice roll and completely fail most of the time anyways. While in Pathfinder, you have more control over your character to get more bonuses, to get more ability scores, essentially to make your character really strong at doing something specific really, really well, allowing them to succeed more often than not. allowing them to feel like the hero or the powerful character that they should be in a story about them, because that's what roleplay is. It's a story about your players. As a GM, you get to have the advantage of getting to play all these fantastic villains and powerful ally NPCs, while players, they only get their one character, and they want their one character to succeed at what they do, because the more they fail, I've seen this firsthand, the more a player fails at something they wanted to do really well, or they just wanted to succeed at right at that moment, it really brings the person down, and it really brings a lot of negative emotions onto the table, and makes people just collectively feel very bad about the entire situation. And so it ends up becoming a pity party, and I hate that. I really do. And so I find that Pathfinder is just a better system, in my opinion. It's not a perfect system by any means, because I have spent the good portion of my life improving the Pathfinder system. I have spent a long time editing rules, changing rules. like for example, my real money house rules, real health system, stuff like that. I've created many of my own rules to try and play the game a little bit more fun, in my opinion, or to my style. Some examples on how on D&D also is a little bit more boring is that D&D is a little bit more open-ended compared to Pathfinder. They leave a lot of stuff up in the air. Now, I understand that this is supposed to be the advantage of role-playing, is that you are using your imagination, you're trying to pull off these really cool stunts and features and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, if you don't have the stats to back it up, you're not going to succeed, and it's going to be a little bit more boring. And there is some things that Pathfinder, that D&D does that I disagree with. And one of the things that D&D does that is very open-ended, and it's kind of D&D's style is that Barbarian's Rage. In D&D, a Barbarian's Rage reduces all non-magical damage to half. I thought that is way too bloody much. A mountain could fall on this character, a cannonball could hit this character, or a dragon could slash this character, and he'll just take half damage. Just half. And if you end up hearing from your GM at this point going, well, this is kind of big, so I'm not going to do half or something like that, then you feel betrayed, because your ability said, I take half damage. It's not magical, is it? I take half damage. And so while on one hand your GM's trying to level with you to try and make it more realistic, you could end up being felt betrayed by your GM, because that's what your ability said. You were planning on that ability, and that's what it should be. While in Pathfinder, you get 1 to 5 damage resistance, non-magical sources. Essentially, this just completely negates 1 to 5 damage every time those damages get done, which balances out, because level 1, it's 1 damage, so that 1d6 that's being rolled at you is still going to do at most 5 damage. But at the same time, if someone shoots a cannonball at you and you're level 1, you're still going to take a lot of damage. While in D&D, you could spec your character out just right and take only half damage half the time, and survive probably some really crazy things that you shouldn't be able to survive, and it's just ridiculous. And I don't like stuff like that. I don't like how D&D is much more open-ended. There's a lot of stuff open in the air. There's not stats, rules, or details for a lot of things, which leaves it to you and your GM to have to negotiate in the moment. Well, does it do this? I kind of like it a little bit more where my players can show up to the table. They could tell me how a rule works, and I'll go, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I'll allow that. Sometimes as a GM, I'll change something up. I'll say that because of this, it's not going to work the same way that you were expecting, because there was something else involved that you weren't planning on. And that does kind of upset the players every once in a while, but your GM is allowed to make those calls, but at the same time, it doesn't completely nullify the thing that the player is doing. It just makes it a little harder. You add some challenge onto it. into the place, as long as it's not impossible, as long as you're not completely removing the ability or the skill from the character, from the player, removing this ability for them to succeed where they had planned so hard to make sure they could. You're doing the right thing, in my opinion. Now, that is just how I feel about Pathfinder in D&D. I felt that D&D was a little bit more open-ended. It was less there was less stats in place, and I do better with stats. And so, in my personal opinion, I think Pathfinder is better than D&D. Now, granted, I've only played a little bit of D&D. I've played a lot of Pathfinder. I've bought a lot of Pathfinder books. I've learned a lot about Pathfinder. I've taken the time to learn more about Pathfinder. I've taken the time to learn so much about Pathfinder that I've tried improving Pathfinder. And so I really like Pathfinder. I really do. I've only tried a little bit of D&D. I've got screwed over with bad GMs and bad experiences. And so I don't like D&D. I don't like how I feel when I play D&D. I just don't enjoy it very much at all. It feels like your character doesn't get to do much. Leveling up just felt so much more important in Pathfinder than it did in D&D, and because you had skill points, you had feats, you had all sorts of cool abilities on your characters. There were so many things that you could do when you leveled up in Pathfinder compared to D&D that I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it more. So if you guys have any opinions on that, maybe you want to say something on D&D's defense, or you agree with me on Pathfinder, go ahead. Let me know in the comments below, or come see me during one of my streams. I'd like to talk about it. I'll talk about this to anybody if you guys want to. Otherwise, I hope you guys have been enjoying the videos, and I hope you guys are looking forward to the next ones, and I hope you guys have a safe adventure.